This is a fun one. This is the most recent spacesuit that came out of this shop. This is my version of the xEMU that we built for to help drum up some attention for G-Force launch. And I have often told the story of the fact that my very first spacesuit was a Baskin-Robbins ice cream tub over my head with some animation acetate in there. But the first spacesuit to come out of my adult shop after Alien, the first American spacesuit, the first non-fictional American spacesuit to come out of my shop was the Mercury suit. I'm going to tease a piece of the Mercury suit. You can see it here. Weathered fabric and things. Looks pretty good. I'm kind of happy with it. I was kind of happy with it. I commissioned one of these. I actually commissioned two of these way back when. 2005, 2006. And I found this fabric that I really liked. But reader, the fabric is vinyl. Do you know what happens to vinyl over time? Yeah. This isn't exposed to sunlight. This is not stored under suboptimal conditions. This is stored in a wardrobe. One of these was on a figure. One of them was in a sealed container with desiccant. They both rotted at the same rate. Total destruction. And this turns out to be the difficult thing about vinyl covered metallic fabrics is that the vinyl used is, I don't know, it's maybe not even vinyl, but it's a rubberized fabric, and whatever this rubberized coating is, it's got an expiration date. It's got a use best if used by date. So I handed over one of these suits plus the plans that the person I'd hired to make them made for me. And I gave them to costuming genius Christine Knobel, who did all the sewing for this one and some other suits of mine. And she came back today with this. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Christine's particular specialty is color. And there's going to be some color work on this, but it's not because of Christine. It's just because I need to add 50, 70 years of exposure to this because all the whites are crispy white. But I just want to call out the first of all, the red and the different reds. We got a little bit of an orangey red. We got a little bit of a ruddier red. There's a little blue in there. Christine's sensitivity to color is one of my favorite things about collaborating with her. She's just phenomenal at her job. And I am now going to, off camera, I added the neck ring. Off camera, I added the neck ring and I stripped the hard parts off of the old suits. The old suits had several hard parts. There was a connector here. There was a electrical connector in the leg. There's a pressure gauge on the wrist. And there is nope, that's it. 1, 2, 3. Also, this patch, I think that's the right patch. I got to double check. I think that's the right patch. I have to go to my stock of ye oldie beaten up NASA patches, and I may replace this with one of those. When I say beaten up, I mean specifically Luna Replicas ran some OG NASA meatball patches on an ancient vector-based embroidery machine, which was much more correct looking than modern embroidery machines. And the Calgary Ghostbusters came to the same conclusion and turned out some unbelievable patches. The Mercury suit was a really interesting project to start with. There is no Mercury suit. There just isn't. There's not one Mercury suit. There's like as many astronauts donned a suit, there are that many Mercury suits. It's like they were all slightly different. And it was a rapid process of collaboration and iteration. NASA was trying out different stuff all the time on these. Famously, John Glenn wanted a light up here. I think it's John Glenn. One of the astronauts wanted a light in their finger, and they put a light in there, and it immediately cut off circulation to the astronaut's finger. This is the kind of stuff that was going on mission by mission, launch by launch, wearing by wearing, because they were rapidly trying to figure out how to survive in space. They knew so little about going to space that I love this. This sort of exemplifies this to me. On John Glenn's Friendship 7 cockpit was an eye chart because they didn't know once he left or got farther away from Earth's gravity well, they didn't know if his eyes would stop working. Like, that's a reasonable question and a hard one to answer. So let's just see empirically what happens. The spirit of experimentation and iteration and failure analysis and recovering from losses and tragedies and blown up rockets, etc. The Mercury suit really sort of it's the beating heart of the spacesuit story for me. Not least of which because in the 50s, when they first started taking the Mark IV high altitude suit and putting a silver coating on it because that was the future. Was that a sentence? I think I started off with a clause that implied there would be another clause and I just stopped. Let's try that again. See, in the 50s, when they were, I don't mean to reveal so much. In the 50s, when they were first making high altitude suits, they took the one that worked, a Mark IV high altitude pilot suit. And then they didn't change much for the very first Mercury suits. They simply made them silver because culturally, that's what everyone thought spacesuits were going to look like. Don't get me wrong. There's also a reason it's reasonable to have reflective material because temperature management in space, they knew that was going to be a pain in the ass before they even got there. But really, it's silver because Buck Rogers. There's always been a virtuous cycle between culture and science. We covered the acquisition at the National Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. We covered the acquisition of an X-wing fighter from The Force Awakens. And there were some complaints in the comments about why is the Smithsonian collecting a fictional spaceship? And it is totally reasonable to ask questions, but that question to me comes from a place of really not having paid attention to what the Smithsonian has been about since its inception. And the fact is that when they named the first Space Shuttle Enterprise, they got a lot, and the one that never flew, but they got a lot more public outreach because of that. When Apollo 13 came out, NASA's budget went up. When The Martian came out, NASA's budget went up. Fictional spaceships are really important to real spaceships. There is, and I think they even call it, the term of art is a virtuous cycle. So I just love that Buck Rogers is the reason that these are silver. And those guys, those dudes, those Mercury 7, man, they were so, you could tell they were chuffed at how they looked. There's this wonderful suit up photo of Scott Carpenter, and he's like looking into the camera, and he is given all of his charisma to that camera. It is a thing. If I'm allowed to, I think it's public domain. Yeah, here you go. Look at that look. Yeah. So there's a reason the Mercury was the very first suit that I chose to attempt to execute in full. And so now, obviously, you know what's coming next. It's time to weather this and to integrate it and to tie all this stuff together. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this home, actually, and I'm going to give it a tea bath to get all these whites down. And that's actually because I have a bathtub. I have a bathtub over there, and that's the better thing to do it in than a bucket here in the cave. Next shot you see will be me coming back with this, and it'll be a lot more yellowed. And what did I tell you? Just a second. There it is. Oh, wait, I guess I should start with, I'm going to go home now and have some dinner and relax, and then do a tea bath on my Mercury suit. And I will see you all tomorrow. For you, it's just going to be like, So this is the same suit you just saw with a couple of passes at tea staining. Now to do tea staining, I will put a kettle on and I'll mix up I'll mix up one of these to-go containers. And I filled this, threw the suit in a bathtub, threw the tea all over it, mushed it around a bunch, threw it out on my deck, and there were still some big honking white parts. So then I made a second batch of tea, and I came in and I bulleted it. Now, I just want to show you, I have always talked about weathering on this channel as a multicolor process, that even if you're going to make something look just grimy, you want more than one color of grime. And you will finish that first color of grime and think, that looks pretty good. I don't think I need another color. And the answer is the second color will always be better. Here, let's take a look at the back side of this here. This is a good example of that kind of variation. You see how the color is not super consistent? That's where the real magic happens with tea staining like this. And with multiple color passes is getting that variegation. Nothing weathers monolithically. In fact, when you look at pictures of this suit, you can see they're all over the place. So I'm actually just going to do a little extra tea staining right now to show you kind of how I think about it. So I've got here just a chip brush. You fall. I've got a chip brush, and I can already see some of the areas that I think need more tea. And when I first put this on, you're going to be like, whoa, and you're going to think that's like too much, but it's not. So we're at this phase now where I want all the, whatever I'm adding, I want it to be spotty. When you look at old stuff, and in order to weather properly, you should be looking at hundreds and hundreds of pictures of old stuff. You just note that the weathering isn't random and it's not consistent. And to make a thing that feels like it's correctly weathered, you kind of just want to. So like part of me thinks, how am I ever going to get to every last corner of this thing in order to get the tea on it? And the answer is I'm never going to. So we just go through and we kind of add some drips and drops where we can. I still haven't even added grime to this yet. And some of these will look poor when I'm done with them, and some of them will look fine. Get some there. That one, the whole thing looks a little too bright. Yeah, now you're getting dirty. I didn't mean to sound so weird about that. And sometimes just letting it cool up somewhere. Also, it smells great. What tea am I using? Thank you for asking. I'm using black tea. It doesn't matter what kind of black tea. Frankly, to me, I'm agnostic on that front. Oh, you're going to fall out if I don't. All right, so from across the room, it's already looking better. What I'm doing now, the kind of what I think of as a weathering detail pass, that I'll do at least like 3 or 4 of these before I think I'm done. And it goes on darker than it dries. It dries lighter, then it goes on. So trust in Providence on that. You'll put it on and you'll be like, oh, I think I screwed up. You will. Every single time I hit brush to stuff, I think, oh, maybe I screwed up. It's a feeling that never goes away. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's go around. Oh. Make sure you get some of that weathering into the zippers. Oh my God, can I show you something? So, like I've talked about earlier in this video, the Mercury suit began as the Navy Mark IV high altitude suit. And it was mostly this color, this green. This is this military green. These are vintage military zippers. They're hard to find. They're brass. They're beautiful. But when it came to the continuous zipper in the middle of this creation, Christine could not find the continuous zipper. And here is her dye job of white zipper to match this zipper. Here, come on in. Whoa! So sorry about that. Again, the real thing is on the bottom. The dye job is on the top. Oh, goodness gracious. This is a different phone clamp. So that is the real thing, and that's the dye job. Amazing, amazing work. And even then, getting just a little bit of like liquid around this, just fantastic for feeling like it's the right thing. I love that it's right in front of the Iron Man, which is my favorite paint job ever. Get some. Right. These Velcro. I see a little T stitching on there. I want more of that. These are very unevenly colored on the original. They're showing lots of weathering. So I'm just gonna get a bunch of stuff on there. Let it bring it down. Same over here. Great! Homer! Skinner! All right. Let's just do that. There you go. Cool. Let that dry for a little bit, and we'll come back to it. Yes, the floor is covered with tea. Why do you ask? It's not like I care about tea being on the floor. I'm just cleaning it up so it's not a trip hazard. That's all. All right. So this Mercury suit that Christine Knobel built is an absolute masterpiece. I can't remember if I've said this in the previous video, but I had sent her all of the reference material I had built on all of the Mercury suits, and there is no such thing as a Mercury suit. When you look at pictures from the Mercury program, what becomes really clear is that every single one of those suits was a prototype. They were trying out different things on every one, on every mission, on every training. There are little things that show up and disappear, attachments, like every picture of every suit is slightly different. And then in 2021, Tested and I were filming at the National Air and Space Museum, and we were in their conservation lab when Ryan Kaiser on our team spotted basically a body under a sheet. And he was like, what's that? And then we're like, it's a Mercury suit. And we ended up doing a whole video on Alan Shepard's Mercury suit. Alan Shepard was the first American in space. So this suit we were looking at is a legendary suit. It's the first American in space suit. And I took a ton of really detailed pictures of it, close-ups. And I sent those also to Christine, and she copied them exactly. So in the end, what I've ended up with is a near perfect replica of Alan Shepard's Mercury suit, save for, because my glove rings were for a different edition, I'm modifying that because Well, it doesn't have Shepard's name on it. It's got mine. So it's a slight modification. I am going to have to include the word replica inside this suit because I think one could be led to believe by nefarious parties that this was had some kind of real lineage. The pieces all look so good. Like Linda's gloves. These are some of my favorite gloves Linda Guarice ever made for me. I had done a set of boots, which I'm really happy with. They need some work on the soles because the soles of the Mercury boots were natural rubber. I was going to sand these down and make them look more correct, but this part is really close. I have some straps to add to these. It's another build. But dudes and dudettes, there we go. That's after some weathering in my kitchen with some tea. I threw it in my bathtub. I mucked around with it. So what's going to happen next, and that will be the end of this introduction video to this beautiful artifact, is I have a museum mannequin. This came from another exhibit my stuff was in. And museum mannequins are very different than normal mannequins because they are made of completely inert materials. Inert means that the material is exactly what it is and it won't change over time. How do materials change over time, you ask? I'm glad that you've asked because, for instance, here we go. I love a certain kind of plastic called acetyl is its chemical name. Delrin is a product name. This is a fantastic material. It is like a bearing plastic. It machines really easily, doesn't dull your tools, but you can't quite tell, but this material is always off-gassing, and that means it's releasing volatile organic compounds slowly into the air, not to any degree that would affect any of us in normal operations, but that does mean that it's not applicable to any NASA application. They can't use stuff that off-gasses because you don't want gases you don't know about in confined environments where you're providing the breathing, and there's no backup. So museum mannequins are made out of all materials that are fully stable. Open cell foams, polyurethane foams, fabrics, all of these are like and what's an example of an unstable material? If you leave a newspaper just in your house, it turns yellow. That is the acidic content of the paper slowly taking over and causing the coloration change. That's a non-stable material. Okay, so I've got one museum mannequin, and I'm pleased about that because that's exactly what the real things are dressed on at the Smithsonian. And the museum mannequins are expensive. They are spendy. So this beautiful suit deserves to go on a spendy mannequin. And I'm just going to set up the camera here so you can watch me do the dressing. Dressing mannequins is no fun. It's always a pain in the ass. And when I was at the Smithsonian talking to the person that dressed their costumes and clothes and artifacts onto mannequins, I asked for the secret and she said there is no secret. It's tough for all of us. Getting a gesture out of a suit is the abiding problem of mannequin posing. So there is no secret. It's just brute force and making it work. All right, I'm gonna set up the shot and then I'm gonna set up my mannequin. All right. Yeah, I like it. I like it. We're going to call this done for now. There's going to be a few side projects. I'm going to remake the entire connector platform for his leg data display. I'm going to rebuild the cap of this inlet port. I'm going to rebuild this entire pulley arrangement. But those might be even 3 one-day builds. Hard to say. But Christine's amazing work of Alan Shepard's beautiful suit is now on a lovely and suitable museum mannequin. Thanks you guys for joining me. See you next time. Thank you for watching that video. If you're anything like me, you were watching it wondering, Adam, how can I spend more time with my friends in the outdoors under improvisatory and impromptu conditions? And I would counsel you to go to adamsavage.com and buy yourself one of my bedrolls, which will allow you plenty of dry yet comfortable socializing on grass or any other place you find yourself. I've had one of these in the trunk of my car for 25 years. Okay, I haven't been making these for 25 years. It was somebody else's until I made my own. Okay, adamsavage.com. I'll see you there.